Please lights off. Okay, I didn't jump. There you go. Okay, so we're not allowed to see this. Here's it's touchable. So yeah, so yeah, make sure. Should I open this? Yeah. Or should I? Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Gordon. I'm facilitator of this room today. Being at our first presentation, welcome. And I'm going to just do a few introductions. I'd like to introduce our judges. Mark Whiteley, if you could just acknowledge. Kelly House, Jane Button, Greg Sauter, and Ron Stiles. Thank you for being here today. Competitors, you have a maximum of 20 minutes to present today. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask questions. I will be keeping time of the presentation today, and I will give you indication of when 5 minutes is there, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and I'll do a 10-second countdown at the end. Observers, there's no questions, comments, cell phones, picture taking will not be permitted. You'll only be able to applaud at the end of the question and answer period. The audience, you are not allowed to wear any school colors or show any representation of what school you're from. We ask that as audience that you leave immediately following the question and answer period. Do you want to get this going? Okay. I'm going to just go around. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Gregor, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Smith. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to be here today. So these are my colleagues. So we have Dwight, we have Amit, and my name is Danae, and we are CRM Consulting. So we are here today because we have been informed that you are looking to acquire Borealis. And what we would like to do in our presentation today is to show you how to really propose this to the bank to get the necessary loan that you need, as well as what key components of Borealis that you should focus on in order to be very successful in the future in this industry. So just a little agenda of what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to give our executive summary, which will just provide an overview of our presentation. We will then provide our analysis, followed by our alternatives, as well as our alternative or analysis. We will then give our implementation, our contingency plan, just to show any mitigating factors of our implementation. And last, we will provide a summary of our presentation. So just an executive summary, just really what our presentation is all about. So we have our primary issue, which is really to increase inefficiencies for strategic growth, or efficiencies, sorry. And our secondary issue here is to look at the Borealis evaluation. So this really looks at whether Borealis is worth the $500,000, and we'll further look in that in our next part of our presentation. And lastly, let's go to our recommendation, which is to acquire Borealis. and also I focus on the efficiencies. So we really want to focus first on the internal efficiencies of the Borealis, just to really focus on the internal operations of the organization, and then later we want to focus on growth. So we decided to do a Porter's 5 Forces because it really just shows the current industry that you are in. So first, in the center, we have the threat of the rivalry competitors. And we said that competition is very high because we have the dozens of smaller auction companies who are in the very same market as you. They offer very similar services, so it's something that we definitely need to look at. And also, they are all in Ontario. So we're all in the very same geographic location. And we also have our main competitor, which is the Ritchie Brothers, and they are a huge competitor for you because currently they own 60% of the market share. So this is definitely a huge threat, which we'll further acknowledge in our implementation. And just looking above, we have threat of new entrants, which we said is very low because there's low barriers to entry. It's very easy for new companies come in and they might have a really strong competitive advantage and be able to take some of this market share. We also have the threat of substitutes, which we says is moderate, because there's not only other auctioneer companies that buyers can go to, but there's also new products from wholesalers that buyers can go to as well. However, you do have an advantage here because you're offering cheaper products since they are new. And then just going down, we have supplier power, which we says is very low. And this is because the auctioneers are selling their products at a very low price because of the recessionary economy. So this is a huge opportunity for you to really capitalize on this and purchase products at a low budget. And we also have buyer power, which we says is very high because buyers can go to other auction sites. They also have other mediums to buy the equipment. And so we'll further talk about this in our implementation. I'm going to pass on to Dwight to take on our next analysis.
Thanks, Danae. So we did a TAOS analysis, but a little bit of a twist on it to give you the alternatives that we're going to use to further into our implementation. So if you could look right up at the top right there, you have $200,000 in the line of credit. Right now the valuation for the business is $500,000, and the line of credit to recycle that is a great idea because that gives you the equity you need to expand. That links in with the opportunity of high access to goods. Like Danae said, there's a very good market out there, and you could just pick up anything and sell it for a premium. The acquisition strategy that you have that you want to expand on is a great idea because you can get the products for cheaper. People don't want to go into an auction because of the uncertainty. So really tackling a good median price, guaranteeing you high margins is a very successful way that you could run your business and expand. So that's why the alternative there is utilize finances to increase purchases. Use the line of credit, use the services that you have, and really focus on the services that will increase your margin. So the next one that we have is the threat. The threat there is Ritchie Brothers market share. Like Danae said, 60% is a large amount of a market share. But the good thing that you have, right now is there's no specific growth strategy. But what I can do to suggest that you really utilize to change that is increase your efficiencies. Look into what you're doing. Right now, you're very customer focused, and your differentiation strategy is just to really focus on the support that you give to your customers that is just beyond any other. Small company, only less than 13 employees. So you really have that family atmosphere. So looking into what you can do to increase your efficiencies, lower your costs, and really increase your margins is a great idea. The next one is 3 times growth in appraisals. You've been thinking about doing that, and we've led to that alternative in our implementation. As you can see, we haven't really focused on that as much, but that goes with the appraisals can be more efficient as the weakness, and really we just believe that you should focus on the things that give you the highest volume. We did the math, and even if you times it by 3, your net revenue would only be $5,000 more. So it's not really especially if you have to hire other employees and go through training and really incorporate them into your branding. So on to the next slide. Ahmed will take you through the alternatives.
All right, so Dwight already gave a gist of what our alternatives look like. So just a quick overview of what the acquisition alternative. You would do a focus on acquisitions due to the low cost of equipment in the industry because of the recession, as well as for the appraisals, there would be an increased focus on appraisals, and there would be a need to hire a new manager because the assumption is made that the new manager can triple the amount of revenue made in appraisals due to him having more time to be able to do so. Next, efficiencies. Increase efficiencies in the short term. So look at ways your organization can increase its efficiencies as well as lower its costs, and look at growth in the long term. So looking at our decision analysis, we chose the decision matrix to help us figure out what decision to choose. So everything is ranked from 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high, and cost is inversed. And the criteria we use more because you are trying to get into this industry and are cash crunch at the moment. So just cheapest because your organization, your upfront capital will go to acquiring the organization, and then the rest will have to be minimally spent so your organization can decrease efficiencies and be effective in its position. And speed, everything was a tie due to efficiencies. With the help of the older managers, tries their best, it can happen quite quickly. As well as appraisals, hiring a manager is not that difficult, and acquisitions as well. Looking to buy new equipment does take some time, but not that much. So in total, our recommendation is to focus on your efficiencies. Focus on gaining efficiencies in the short term and increase organizational growth in the long term. So moving into our implementation. One major question your organization asked us was, is the company worth buying? Is the valuation of $500,000 reasonable? So we looked at 2 valuation methods. The first is 10 times the net income. The net income of the company was $80,787. So 10 times that is roughly $800,000 of the company's worth. And the second valuation method is the net assets with a 10% margin, which comes to $457,000. So you guys can choose to bargain with the price, but $500,000 is a very reasonable offer for the company. Now I will pass it off to Janae for the implementation.
Okay, so the first part of our implementation really focuses on the internal operations of Borealis. Just making sure that everything, after you acquire a new company, you definitely have to go back and look at your internal operations, making sure that everyone's on the same page. So what we have first is looking at training. So once you acquire the Borealis, we really want to make sure that you have the knowledge and expertise to be able to run all of the auction operations. So what we'd like to do is have the Borealis, the owners, and have them train you, because they have the expertise, they have the knowledge, they've been in the industry, and you haven't yet. So we want to make sure that you're just all caught up. You know the knowledge, you know how operations work. And we would also like to make sure that the organizational culture is adjusted, to make sure that you can adjust to the organizational culture, because their customer service is the very core of their value chain. So it's something that we really need to emphasize. We really need to keep it going. And since there is only 13 employees, they're likely a very tight-knit group. They likely have a very strong organizational culture, so we want to keep this strong. And so next we'd like to look at the utilizing on the contacts. So this is the previous contacts of the Borealis company. So we just want to keep in contact with them, making sure that they are up to date on the acquisition. We want to keep our customers up to date and knowledgeable about what's going on, because that will really increase our customer loyalty with them, which is very important to this company. So what we're going to do is we're going to call them, make sure that all of their needs are being met, asking them if there's anything that we can do, because we really want to focus on maintaining your current customers first before we look at expanding and obtaining new customers. And lastly, we have our focus, which is on our internal efficiencies, which is really our the internal operations of the auctions. So right now, there is a recessionary economy. So the auctioneers, they are selling the equipment and other products at a very cheap cost. So we feel like you should capitalize on this and buy large amounts of equipment right now when the cost is very low. Then you can sell them at a premium, and this will generate very high revenues very fast for your company. And so that's all we have for looking at our internal operations. And our next part of our implementation is really going to look at how to grow the company.
Perfect. Thanks, Lynette. So the next one we did was 3 to 12 months. And this is a key aspect of your company's time because this is where you really start to put in the seeds of how you're going to do your growth strategy and how you're going to expand. So, back one, please. Thank you. Training and auction operations. That is a key component. Actually, wait, sorry, no, next slide. Increased number of auctions. That is the one that I'm looking for. You really want to expand from 4 to 8 in 3 years. 4 to 8 is not a big step. Your main competitor does 200 auctions. 200 auctions, and they make a big margin on those. They make $905,000 per auction. You only make roughly $45,000, and that was a huge number that stuck out to us. Appraisals mapping. So you really wanted to make your appraisals more efficient. We don't believe that you need to hire more appraisers. We believe that if you just map out roads and geographic areas and go do it in one stream and really focus on how you can use the current staff that you have more productively, you'll be way more successful in your industry. And on top of that, you do charge for the travel costs. So even though there's not enough hours in a day, we do believe that there is enough hours if you do implement the right strategy and if you do implement the right travel. And expand cross-provincially. Right now, you're looking to go into New Brunswick, into Moncton, and we believe that there's more that you could do. We believe that your main competitors in Edmonton right now, we would go from Ontario outwards, touch into Manitoba, touch into Montreal and Quebec, and we believe that that would be excellent for your company. And you do all of your auctions in Ontario out of Owen Sound. Go into London, Ontario, go into Thunder Bay, spread out. There's plenty of options in Ontario that you could go and reach a large amount of people. You were looking to go internationally very quickly. I think it was within 2 years. We would say focused on the inner workings of the market that you have now. Really establish your dominance and then expand outward. Make sure that you have the synergies. Acquiring a new company isn't easy. You have a lot of experience in just running your own small company, and we believe that you do have a lot of the skills, all of the skills you need to be able to be successful, but that takes research, that takes the training with the previous owners, getting in touch with the contacts, and learning the ins and outs of the industry. Perfect. On to the next slide, please. So this is where we really get into the Salesforce drive. So in the previous one, we were doing market research and looking into those markets and doing a little one or two because you're not expanding outrageously fast. So for that, we need to increase the sales force. Increasing the sales force won't be easy. You need to do screening processes very diligently because you do have such a small, compact staff. And we believe that if you screen the right candidates that are self-driven, motivated to sell, and really want the company to succeed like we all do, and like the workers there do now, the owners, they're leaving their company behind, but they still want to work there part-time. They still want to work there and recruit for the company. They build plans for it. Everyone's passionate about the company for a reason. It's because it's a great market. There's great opportunities for growth. Increasing the margins by getting things at a minimum and selling them for premiums is just a very strong way to grow your company. The third one is market research into other areas. So previously we went cross-provincially. This is where we would start to focus on growing nationally to the further ends of the country. Go to Vancouver, go to Prince Edward Island. I'm sure there's a lot of auctions in Prince Edward Island. And then go to the United States. There's New York City, there's Los Angeles. Those are big meccas that have a lot of auctions, But before you go in there, you need to be wary of the competitors there. You need to be wary of your potential for growth, and you need to be wary of just how you can successfully enter the market. We believe that with your customer service profile and the service model that you do provide to your customers, that you could be super efficient at what you get to in the future. Perfect. Now I'm going to pass it off to Ahmed, and he will take you through some projections. Thank you.
All right, so here are 3 quick snaps of projections we have for you. The top being the income statement, the bottom left being a balance sheet, and the bottom right being a balance sheet. All right, so looking at the income statement, your organization for 2016 has projected roughly those numbers for revenues and direct costs and net income. We see that those numbers are perfectly correct, and your organization should not try to have a huge amount of expenses in the first year and just try to settle in after this acquisition. However, in 2017, the suggestion that was mentioned before to acquire new equipment in the recessionary economy would be implemented in 2017. So your line of credit has used up $100,000 already, so the balance of $200,000 would be available for your organization. And for 2017, we budgeted $100,000 for your organization to put towards acquiring these assets for resale in the later years. And in 2018, the plan is to have those sold. So in 2018, the margins would grow, and your organization will be able to pay off the debt incurred off the credit line, as well as start paying off the very low bank loan percentages that your organization that you have to take to acquire the company. And now for our contingency analysis. So rejection of a bank loan. This is highly unlikely that BDC chooses not to give your organization the loan that you are looking for, which is of roughly $350,000. But just in case they do, your organization can take a higher percentage of bank loan from another bank or seek other financing. As well, increased competition. If there is increased competition as your organization enters, you should just really focus on what makes your organization different from everybody else, which, as mentioned before, was the customer service. The amount of customer service and the reputation your organization has needs to be the main focus when competition increases. And for our summary. So just to go over what we mentioned, you should have a focused strategy on increasing efficiencies. An analysis was made that your organization can cut $40,000 of costs for auctions every year, which was also in the projections. So there is room for your organization to increase efficiencies, as well as strategic organizational growth. As was mentioned before by Dwight, your organization should look inwards and then move outwards to the outer ends of Canada and then to the United States. And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, judges. You have 5 minutes for any questions.
You said it's highly unlikely that we would be rejected by the bank. There is land and building about $300,000 with a $100,000 draw on the line of credits, about $200,000 in real tangible assets there for a loan of $350,000, I think you said. Is the bank really going to lend $350,000 on a collateral of $200,000?
Looking at the financial statements, one major reason your organization dipped into the organization previously, but previous owners dipped into the line of credit was to pay the dividends to the owners, which, if explained to BDC, which does look at investing to entrepreneurs, would most likely give that leeway and say, okay, it was the previous owners, and you guys, as the new owners, are looking to grow the business, and most likely will give the loan that you are looking for.
And to add on to that, you're taking a modest salary of $30,000 every year for the next 3 years. You're putting a lot of sweat equity into the company. So we do believe that they will look into that, and they will be super excited about not only the opportunity, but the growth potential that you have with your company.
And just that you offer such a unique service, you have a very strong competitive advantage in the market, and we definitely feel like proposing this to the bank, they will definitely take that into consideration and just say, like, look how much we were going to grow in the next few years. So that's definitely something that we think that you will not be rejected by the bank.
So over the past few years, it looks like the owners have been cashing out. They've been taking the money. There doesn't seem to be a lot there. And their engagement in this may be questionable. What considerations have you given to that? Because you're going to need to rely on them quite heavily going forward. How will you gain the commitment?
We do believe that they have a big standing in the company. They have been taking dividends out of the company, but they do really want to stay. They have a lot of good contacts, and they've built a good company culture based off of the customer base. So we do believe that they are passionate about the company, and they have all of the knowledge about the industry. We could do external research if we were to even think of that, but that didn't come into consideration because we do know the owners are passionate.
So when we're talking about finances, money, granting a lot of it, so the bank is to rely on their passion of the previous owner?
The proposition to the bank would be of the projections that we have provided you and showing that to the bank that this amount of growth is possible, as well as showing them the prospects of the fact of the recessionary economy and the assets that can be accumulated over that time with the projection of the resale value after should give the bank enough reassurance that there is enough possibility of growth in the future. As well, the company has a great reputation, which is only second to the largest in Ontario, which holds 60%, which is the Ritchie Brothers. So it should be reasonable.
You talked a number of times about looking for efficiencies. I didn't hear a lot of examples, so give me 3 examples of the efficiencies we should be looking at in the first 6 months.
So the first one would be the auctions. I think your projections were 40% that you could decrease your auction costs. We did look into the Ritchie Brothers compared to your company, and your 4 did substantially less per auction. And we believe that if you acquire more in your current assets there, if you with the purchases and you do sell more and reach out more, that you can reach more markets and expand efficiently. Oh, and on top of that, there was the mapping that I mentioned, and the mapping was one of the key components of that because that makes that sector better. And then as well as that, shifting the focus on the purchases for lower and selling them for premiums and not even going into the auctions, but just being a median reseller could be a key component to just growing your margins and not giving them that risk of going to an auction.
One quick question.
So the new management team is going to save this business, and you mentioned by just putting more time into the business. Is that right?
Oh, no, I would disagree, sorry. Danae, do you want to take this one? Or, yeah?
Yeah,
Can you be more specific about how they are going to increase profitability, and why should the loan officer believe that they will be able to do that?
So we really want to focus on our internal operations first. And in order to be profitable, we are going to purchase a lot of the equipment at low cost because of the recessionary economy. So we're going to take advantage of that now, which will generate profits. And then we would also like to look at expanding across Canada, expanding your products. So we believe that this will be profitable as well.
Yeah, and to add on to that, it wasn't just the passion, it was also just the strategic plan that we've implemented to focus on these other segments that you are not putting primary focus on. Right now you are focused on auctions, which is your bread and butter. We don't suggest going away from that. You were thinking of spreading more into appraisals slightly and online. We believe that the small and medium businesses don't go online as much to do those purchases. So we think that focusing on your person-to-person build and really building that market before you go into further research and development would be excellent.
Thank you. That's our time for the question and answer.
Thanks everyone for coming.